and basically just have a video of a recent Trump interview from I think 3 weeks ago now, and it's on Fox News. So yeah, I guess it's fake news, but again, just listen to what Donald Trump has to say here. And I, made the comment again about a week ago that obviously an opinion, no way to objectively measure this. I think Donald Trump is the president who has cared most about the American people and the outcome of the American people relative to their the rest of the world and their position relative to the rest of the world, more so than any other president since JFK. Mm-hmm. And I think the statement is one of many that he makes. And then again, it's not just talk is cheap, right? But again, we'll see. I think he is on a very great path this term that, again, we haven't seen the likes of any other term. You could argue, he had similar effects in his first term. I don't think so. Again, I think he was kind of underwater there, not knowing what he's doing.
He learned a lot.
He did. And I think he admitted to it in a way that a lot of people won't give him credit for because they like to think Trump's not that type of person. He would never admit any wrongdoing. And I get in a political position that he's in, especially with how intense the spotlight is. You admit you're wrong, and people are running with that and like, oh, they're not fit, but in any case, Barack Obama, I was making the comment that if you were to make the comment that if he couldn't raise like his daughter or had to take care of the country, people would be up in arms, kind of losing their minds about that. And yet, Theodore Roosevelt publicly, made that comment when he was president. I can either take care of my daughter and, control her, or I can take care of this country, right? And I think if you were to get that from a modern politician, that's the very swift beginning to the end of their career, right? Mm-hmm. And again, obviously, I think Trump has been an exception to, those comments where typically it would be the end of someone. He can just... What is it? Water off the duck's back, something like that.
So this is from the Oval Office. When was this?
Yes, about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Do you ever call any former president? Do you call any of the former presidents?
Not much.
No.
A lot was made out of the fact that I got along very well with President Obama, right? You saw that.
Yeah, it seems
I did.
so.
I can, I can do things that a lot of people.
You were friends with pretty much all of them.
I just didn't like the job they did. Because it's not about friends. I didn't like the job they did. They let our country down.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
To me, that's it's not again, to me, that was not him trying to get a soundbite. That was just his honest off-the-cuff take. How do you explain that conversation with Obama? I thought you didn't agree with him, but now it seems like you're all buddy-buddy with him and kind of trying to portray this narrative of, which is it? Are you friends with him or not? And like you said, brilliant answer in my opinion. It's not about being friends with him. It's this: I'm here to do a job for this country, and I think they've let our country down. And so many people are like, well, Trump is narcissistic. He's all about himself. I'm sorry. That's what, in my opinion, what we should all want. At the very least, that's what I want out of a politician. I want someone that's self-serving. Again, an American, right? From the start, they're serving Americans, but without it, then you get lip service. You get pandering to what you think the people want, right? And you're never going to be able to appeal to everyone anyway, right? That's kind of like what I was getting at with the objective truth, that no matter how objective, those events, as they unfolded is true, people's perception of what happened, is not going to be the same across the board. And I just find that, that also holds true in a situation like this, that it's not about being friends, it's about doing what you think is right for your country, having your own vision, within the context of a business and sticking with it. And obviously you can use that same sort of terminology with the country as well, but really doing what you think is best. Obviously, pulling in, all the different opinions of your cabinet or your advisors, your team members that you're working with. But at the end of the day, you have to represent your self-interest. You can't be, hey, I represent the American people, because what the hell does that really mean, right? Representing the American people.
And if you try to be all things to everybody, you wind up being nothing, to anyone, so to speak. And another way of saying what Trump just said there, and what I think you just said, I could summarize it real quick. For him, it's business. It's not about, whether he likes somebody or not. He even said that I personally feel that Trump doesn't have a problem with any of these people personally. It is business. And you heard what he just said. He didn't like the job they did.
Right.
And as we've seen, go back and I challenge everybody to go and Google the David Letterman interviews and I don't know if he was on Leno, probably,
yeah.
30 years ago. And he's saying the same thing today that he said on these in these interviews. And to me, that consistency, it's another reason why I support him and supported him. And I think a lot of America did. We need to see some consistency. It's objective, and it objectively speaking, I feel that Trump believes today what he believed 30 years ago. Objectively, that's subjective, my view on it, I guess. But to me, the evidence is pretty clear. So, and I think you're in the same boat.
Yeah, again, I've watched a lot of those older interviews. I've watched a lot of, especially recently, either when I'm not like actively watching them, listening to in the office, and sometimes during drone production, the 2016 Republican primary debates. Again, not as old as like some of the clips that we're referring to from talk show interviews that he's done. Where again he's fairly consistent with his messaging for literally 4 or 5 decades now.
Unheard of.
However, again,
for a politician,
and obviously there's going to be places where his position has evolved or changed over time, and I don't think either of us want to like misconstrue like someone having evolving, changing opinion for being like a flip-flopper, right? I think there's a very clear difference. Sometimes putting your finger on, well, was this a change of heart, or was this a very real, like I had information that's like, led me to think, oh no, this is actually the right move forward. And that was something that I found kind of funny. Marco Rubio was called out for in the 2016 primaries. It was basically something to do with asylum or something similar for immigrants. And it might have even been for like family members that were already here. And basically he got called out for, lying, where he was at a recent event that this lady was at that was asking a question to all the Republican primary candidates. It was clear to the viewer already that he had done a 180, even if he had not watched, that event that she was talking about, just in the way that he's kind of trying to talk around, like his position changing or whatever. And Donald Trump, he was called out earlier for basically being hypocritical because he's hired, people from Poland or whatever for, to the tunes of tens of thousands of people for a project back in like the late 80s
that may
or
not
whatever.
have been citizens.
Yeah.
He got cheap labor.
Right. Yeah. And so he was like, something 4 decades ago. And, Trump made a kind of funny retort about, I guess we need a, what's the statute of limitations on lies now? Do we need a statute of limitations? Or maybe Marco Rubio had said that because, Trump was like his situation 40 years ago, owned up to it immediately, not trying to hide it from anyone there, watching the Republican primary debate. And then, Marco Rubio, like Trump was like, dude, you got caught. Basically just say it. And like, yeah, hey, I was trying to, but at that point, again, saying that you lied, as blatantly as that case would have been, probably not the best political move either. But
well, if a person has strong beliefs about something and they're not willing to change that belief based on time going by and reevaluating their stance and position,
right,
then that's not human either. I mean, it's right. Human nature, and it's positive that we change our views on things that we might believe solidly about something. And then as we get more educated and learn more, we realize that that viewpoint was flawed or whatever. I mean, this is one of the main arguments Elon Musk has said about Donald Trump, or J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance spoke against Donald Trump at first, and his response when he's called on that, his response is, I didn't really understand who Trump was. Now I understand him and know him better. And I think he sees that Trump is sincere. And I think you and I both are in alignment that, and the thing that we like, one of the things we like about Trump is I think that he's sincere in his belief to do what's best for this country.
And that does not mean to say every single word that comes out of his mouth is truth either, right?
Absolutely. I mean, he talks in almost parables sometimes, and
hyperbole, exaggeration. Sometimes just straight up getting numbers wrong or facts wrong.
He's human, and he is. Does he have an ego? Is he narcissistic? I would say
absolutely.
And for any people, this country, I mean, we're a country of narcissistic people. Our culture is narcissistic by nature. All these, I mean, women go out of their way every day to make themselves look a certain way, to be desired. And men as well. We're all narcissists. That's part of being human too. Is you can't get rid of that narcissism. There's some leaders that have less of it than others. But is Trump flawed? I would say, I'm a history major, right, from school, and when I remember one of my professors saying at Carolina that most great men are flawed, meaning most great leaders are flawed. And if you're going to lead, you're not going to be popular with everybody, and you're not going to be everybody's, pal, etc. You're going to piss a lot of people off. Has Trump done that? Yeah, he's made a lot of people, isolated a lot of people in this country. I don't want to go down that hole, but to your point, the sincerity that we've seen and the consistency is something unusual, and it's unheard of in a politician to hold core views for 40 years and not be caught flip-flopping on those. And core views of Trump about putting this country first and taking care of our own people has always been, and I think always will remain, one of his primary core beliefs that won't change.
Yeah, I think
he'll never be a globalist, for example. He's going to be
Team America.
Team America, and some people would say he's nationalistic, and that's dangerous and it is to a degree. You have to watch nationalism because it can lead to countries wanting more land and wanting to conquer territories and shit like that. Now we're going back to World War II and before, and we've grown. I think mankind has learned some valuable lessons that they're too much of a good thing can yield. There's always two sides. Right? One of my favorite sayings is, it's a mighty thin slice of ham that only has one side, right? There's two sides to everything. A good thing can become a bad thing, right? Pretty much in anything in life. So we got to, with nationalism, it's time, and the pendulum is coming back. But we have to watch it, when people start calling for, like if Trump wanted to invade Greenland, for example, I wouldn't support that, or invade Canada. I wouldn't support that because I don't feel it's our right to go conquer.
We shouldn't go take arms up against someone. Now, again, if we're prospering in such a way that they want to willfully, like the people want to willfully, join our form of government, federal government, as an entity, or break off into or many entities, many states within our republic. I'm not apparently inherently opposed to the idea either. Again, I think if you look back in any point in history when America has been able to expand land, it's been for the better. Again, given America is still a young country, so there's still a lot of history still to be settled. But I think, of course, Greenland, if I've heard a couple members of his cabinet, people close to him in his administration talking about what they think is likely to happen. Greenland will declare their independence from Denmark, and then Trump will come in and make a deal that the people of Greenland won't be able to refuse. We'll see if that.
You're going to make them a deal they can't refuse.
The art of the deal.
So you have Obama up here.
Barack Obama. So again, I had mentioned it's been quite some time since he's been in the public spotlight, and I really appreciate him going out and putting himself out there in this way. He was very, I think, candid about one, it being quite a while since he's gone out and done any speaking engagements. He's been writing his autobiography, and so he said like he's spent a lot of time in his head essentially, right? You know, and it's very different from going from long form communication via writing to speaking. But beyond that, he was also talking about a lot of what we've touched on throughout this episode, kind of the international order that has been established, especially, you know, post World War II that we've lived in for, you know, the decades since, and how that's essentially at risk with our current leadership. And I think, again, he did a very good way to like really, because I think it's like a liberal college, as most colleges are now. And I hate, again, using like that sort of term, but in the sense of like, there's probably more Trump haters than, I don't want to even say Trump supporters, but like, I would say there's more Trump haters than Trump supporters on almost every college campus. And I make it that black and white, like take out the people that are really not into politics, not inherently for any politician. If you're just say people for another politician or against Trump, I think there's more in the against Trump on. And then I mentioned that because I think Obama did a good job to make sure, you know, he was not trying to like get the crowd riled up about Trump's awful. You know, he's like really kind of giving him a chance.
So he's speaking at Hamilton College.
Yes. And
where are they? I mean, where's
I don't know.
Okay. And real quickly.
Yeah, I think Maryland, but I could be wrong.
The problem I have, when you say liberal, you know, liberal college and whatnot, it's a positive thing.
Yes.
Liberal to me is free thinking and
I'm just looking up.
Not, you know, not aligned with the church, not aligned with, you know, a foundational way of thinking. That to me is liberal.
Yep.
I think the definition of liberal is someone who embraces progressive and change and isn't afraid of that. And so again, that two sides to everything, right?
Right.
I think liberalism founded this country. It was a liberal idea to think that you don't need a monarch ordained by God through divine providence or whatever that's called, divine right. It's called the King of England King George was in the position he was in due to divine right, meaning God put him there, right. And how dare you go against him? So we were, I'm sure, viewed as, you know, heretics for breaking away from the crown and believing that we can rule ourselves. It was a radical idea at the time. That is true liberalism. The crap we see happening, the anti-Trump and all that stuff, it's been co-opted. Liberalism has been hijacked.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying. It's been hijacked, right. And it's not true. And when I talk about phony liberalism, that's what I'm talking about. I use that a lot, and I may not know what I'm talking about, but that's my belief.
No, I agree, and that's where, again, identity politics has become so pervasive and not for the good of us. It's, again, either, in my opinion, consider yourself an individual and independent, or if you want to be a part of a group, be part of Team America, right? And really, Team People is fine too, but again, I think there's an argument to be made. You got to draw the line somewhere between helping everyone and helping yourself. And I think the best way to do that with the current structure of the world is cut it off at America, right? And then if you want to get more granular, think about like your state, think about your county or your city, but
local,
right?